Welcome to the Off the Beaten Path podcast. My name is Bobby Stevens, and I'm bringing you the very best in undiscovered talent. Today I have with us a very exceptional artist. Her name is Hannah Rooth, and she is 1/3 of the band Wild Hum, who has recently released their debut self-titled album just a few days ago, actually, on September the 27th. The album has been described as strange and emotive, stylistically divergent, and sonically stimulating. In addition to the album, Hannah has recorded a pop track with Big Chris Flores of Rehab Studios. He's notable for having worked with Slash from Guns N' Roses and Fergie, and the pop track will be released later this October. In the band, but not with us today, is April, who plays cello in the band, and Adrian, who plays guitar and drums. The vision of this album is navigating emotionally suffocated youth, divorce, lifelong depression, and anxiety. This is a journey of a tender soul taking courage to open herself to the world. So everybody, welcome to the podcast, Hannah Rooth.
Thank you so much, Bobby. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming to the podcast. I mean, when I first started looking to do this, probably about 5 or 6 months ago, you were one of the first bands that I found. Y'all had just released the Divorce on the Water video, and I fell in love with it instantly. Like the emotion that came through, not just with the music, the lyrics, the vocals, but just the full production of the video too. So it's been quite a year for you guys. Before we dive into the music, like I said, y'all just released a new album. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Washington State, in Bellingham, which is north of Seattle a little bit, and moved down to Houston, Texas when I was 18. And then relocated to Cambridge, Massachusetts in 2017, I guess it was. And that's when we started Wild Hum.
Gotcha. So what took you from Spokane or Washington area? Spokane, I guess, is the only city I know in Washington. But what took you from Washington State down to Houston, Texas originally?
So I originally moved to do a volunteer program in Houston that was based on, like community living and, community service and racial reconciliation. So that was my initial move. And then I ended up staying in Houston, and I met my, now ex-wife there in the volunteer program, and we were together for a while there.
Gotcha. And with that, how did you first get started in such a cause? I mean, that's something to be pretty proud of. How did you first get started in like racial reconciliation, things of that nature? Yeah.
Well, I was raised in a very, very religious environment, very like conservative Christian fundamentalist. And there were certain things about the religion that never really clicked with me, that I didn't really agree with. But a thing that I did have a lot of respect for was the historical figure of Jesus, and how he talked a lot about the poor and lifting up the poor, and how people who are suppressed in society are deserving of everything that everyone else is, and how it's important to prioritize those people and not to view things in the way that society tends to have us view things, on us, like thinking people are more important if they're wealthier, or if they're better educated, or these sorts of things. So I was interested. I came across this program out of a conference that talked about the social justice side of Christianity. And the program was about spending a year actually trying to like live out our values instead of just talking about them in church on Sunday. So, yeah, it was definitely a very introspective year for me. And we also, another thing I appreciate is we actually did a lot of learning. Like we would read books about systemic racism, like Michelle Alexander's, the name's escaping me right now. Oh, The New Jim Crow. It's a good book about kind of how slavery a few hundred years ago has been replaced in our country with the imprisoned population, which is largely disproportionately Black men. anyway, so we would learn about the actual statistical reality of racism, as well as getting to know people who have experienced that reality in our country.
And with that, like you said, putting your faith and your values in action, how would you say that affected you then? And now that you've moved on from maybe doing that work specifically in Houston, how does that affect you now?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, that was kind of a first step. Going into that program was a first step in kind of coming out of my childhood and how I was raised, and coming into what feels really authentic for me and what I actually believe about the world and how I want to live my life. I mean, I definitely think I gained some positive things from my upbringing, in the respect of like being introspective about how one sees the world and trying to kind of like give back and consider other people and things like this. But I think moving into a program that was putting things into action really made me look at being very, very honest with myself and the world around me about what I believe and how that ties into the way that I live my life and present myself to the world. So I think doing that program definitely helped give me courage in some ways to take the next steps I would take in my life around like coming out as bisexual, or at the time as lesbian, and sharing that process very openly with a lot of people who were very uncomfortable with that and not necessarily supportive of it. And then also moving into finding new ways of working for social justice, and really like training myself to learn continually about the realities of what's actually happening in the world versus just kind of a story that I've been taught. I think it's really important if we want to actually make a difference to like always be learning about what's actually happening.
Yeah, and with that, what did you carry with your self now, as far as like how that affects your music? And you spoke of being honest with yourself and kind of honest with the world. And like this new album, we'll get into the details of it later. But you're very vulnerable about some things that happened in your past, both good and bad. And you kind of opened up in a way for a first album that's not typical. So what about that honesty and courage? How does that affect your music?
Yeah, I think it's very central to what I try to do musically. Honestly, whether it's songs I've written or songs I'm covering, it's very important to me to try to portray very genuinely what my internal experience is. And I've always found singing and music to be a really special way that I'm able to kind of tap into that in a way that feels very authentic. And I think that's what people appreciate when they hear me, is they can hear that there's something very non-contrived about what I'm sharing and about the music that I create. And it's not, the songs I've written so far, they don't have to do specifically with like broad social justice issues. They're like personal and about my relationships. Mm-hmm. But I do think that these things can be connected in the sense that I think being very honest and vulnerable about our own reality, our own internal reality, can also empower us to be able to approach more honestly the reality of things that are happening in other people's worlds.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So me, I also grew up in a very Christian household, and I still hold that as like my foundational, like stepping stone of faith. But I've also been branching out too. Just seeing what else is out there, seeing how it can impact me. I feel like God, the universe, spirit is just bigger than one faith or one religion. And in the yogic philosophy, they talk about you have to first impact yourself with the values of love and morality and taking care of the planet before you can actually spread that out. So you being able to find that honesty and that vulnerability with yourself does actually help you spread that to the world. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about music. You said you've been expressing yourself through music for a while. Did you start young, or did you start a little bit later in life?
I did. I started writing songs really early, about as early as I could write in general. I'd say I was probably 6 or 7. But they were just they were a very personal thing for me, like kind of how I processed my own emotions. And I didn't share, well, I'll tell you a little story that I often think of when people ask me this question. But when I was young, I wrote a song about my absent father. And my babysitter's husband was a piano player, and he heard that I write music, and he offered to compose the piano to the song for me. So I brought it over to him one day and sang it for him, and he played it on the piano. And afterwards he turned to me and, like, in a natural, just concerned way, because it was a very, like, sad song, and he was like, "Are you okay?" and was just, kind of asking me questions and seemed concerned. But what I took from that was like, oh no, I made somebody sad. I made someone upset. I shouldn't share this. So I kind of just, like, tucked it away and didn't. After that, I think I kind of was like, I don't want to make people sad, or just being afraid of that there was something wrong with sharing that part of myself. So yeah. Later, I guess I started playing an instrument when I was 17. I started playing guitar, and I would like help lead worship in my church group and stuff like that, and played in some different like small bands where we would either play in weddings or playing at open mics, but never really took my own myself as an artist, like, very seriously, or thought of it as something I could seriously pursue until after the divorce. That was kind of what sparked my reconnection to my musical and creative side, and also realizing in a lot of ways that I needed to bring more vulnerability into my life and, like, show more of myself to the world and in my relationships. So that was a big kind of catalyst for me to start pursuing music more seriously.
Yeah, it's nothing like a little bit of tragedy to really push a passion.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So for me, I went through a divorce too when I was a little bit younger. Married at 22, very fast marriage and divorce. Divorced by the time I was 24. And for me,
about the same for me.
Yeah, I went right back to music. I mean, I had laid it down for a while. I was like, oh, I'm married now. Let's do career. Let's make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. American dream. And it just went to shit pretty fast, and it didn't work out. So I went back to music school, went and studied. I don't know why I studied production. Looking back at it now, it's like, why didn't I play my instrument? Why didn't I play bass? But I went to production, and that's what I did. But for me, I didn't have the drive to continue pursuing. It was more so just, hey, this is my fallback. This is what I know. Let me go back to something that's comfortable and familiar. But with you, you went back to the same thing, but you found drive to keep pushing. Explain that drive that kept you going when it got difficult or mundane and you just wanted to quit, but you didn't stop.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think for me, it, well, there are a lot of aspects of this, I guess, to bring together, but I guess I can narrow it down to a couple things. One would be the friendships and relationships in my life that would, like, encourage me and see my talent and, tell me that it was worth it. And I had a lot of friends like that in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Well, I still have them. I'm just not living there and seeing them all the time. But that was huge. Having the support of a community was really huge. And of course, having April and Adrian take interest and want to form a band with me around my songs is, like, an incredible thing. To have people want to, like, contribute their talents to your project is Yeah, it's a very special feeling. So I'd say that, and then also I definitely fought a lot of self-doubt and still do. It gets, the weight of it gets smaller over time after kind of doing the same things and seeing some results happen. But I think I realized that one of the things I realized about a year and a half ago was that I really needed to start focusing on building my own self-esteem. And that I think a lack of self-esteem is what had kept me from really considering my passion as something worthwhile and something that I could pursue sooner in my life. So I think I came to realize that would be that following that is kind of like a circular sort of thing. It's like I realized that stepping out and doing something that felt meaningful to me would help build the self-esteem that I needed to continue to do that. I read a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, actually, that I found really useful. And so staying focused on that mentality that even when I felt insecure, that was a familiar feeling, but what I was doing was stretching a new muscle and realizing that I had the power to continue to do things even if I felt insecure about them.
Yeah, I come from a fitness background a little bit, and I always tell people that just like the body, how it's searching for that homeostasis, that place it calls home or center, the mind does it too. So if you've been in that pattern of self-doubt and low self-esteem for so long, it just takes so much energy to break through that. But once you do, I mean, that becomes a new home and that becomes a new center. And things try to knock you off, but
yeah,
which I'm
absolutely.
sure you probably felt.
And
So
I do think surrounding yourself with friends who are really good people and encouraging is in my opinion or my experience completely necessary. I think we need each other's support to kind of get through the dark places.
Yeah, it's completely vital. If it wasn't for the friends I have back in Georgia, my wife who's just in the next room, I mean, I would be a very broken guy. So I was going through a very dark place, and having that friendship and that community was extremely vital for just being able to get through it. So after the divorce,
here you have that.
Thank you. You too. So was it after the divorce that you immediately went to Cambridge, or how did you get from Houston to Massachusetts?
Yeah, after the divorce, I realized very quickly that I needed a change of scenery, kind of to feel like I was able to start over. And, my ex and I had a very broad circle of friends there we're all interconnected. So it felt like a good time to kind of break free of a lot of things and start somewhere new. And
why Cambridge?
So I ended up in Cambridge, partly because my current partner was there and I was interested in him at the time. Partly because one of the kind of, I guess, social justice organization that I was involved with at the time had a large group in Boston. So I thought it would be a good place to continue some of the work that I was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you got to Cambridge, did Wild Hum start immediately, or what was the story with that? Like, give me a little bit of the timeline, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't immediate. I started going to open mics pretty much as soon as I got there, but I didn't get the band together until August, which was about 8 months after I moved to Cambridge. So it took time for sure. It took time for me to realize it was something I wanted to pursue seriously. And after I made that commitment, the pieces just kind of started to fall into place.
And were open mics, was that something that was familiar that you had been doing for a while, or was that a new activity just to kind of grow?
I was pretty familiar with open mics. I'd probably been doing them for at least a few years at that point, but I started doing them more regularly and more consistently.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looked like y'all had a pretty bustling open mic scene up there. I checked out a few of your videos from that time period, and it was just very cool seeing, like, because I've listened to the full album a few times now, just
Thank you.
partly because it's really good, and then partly because I knew we were going to have this conversation, so I wanted to be able to speak intelligently about it. But seeing some
Appreciate
of this...
that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Seeing some of the same songs stripped down to just you and the ukulele, and just seeing that rawness before the full production was there was very neat to see that. It's almost like seeing the songwriting in like progress.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, it definitely is satisfying and special whenever I end up going and looking at an old video to see both how far things have come, but also how true to the initial feeling and the original they stay. It's fun.
Yeah, the emotion was still there. It's almost like the bones and just didn't have the flesh yet.
Yeah. It's a good analogy.
Yeah, I see things in pictures, so I'm always having to like categorize things and like, how can I visualize this in my mind? So yeah. So you get to Boston or Cambridge, you start playing open mics. You do this for about 8 months. At what point did you meet Adrian and April? Were they friends that you met pretty soon, or did you kind of meet them later on?
Yeah, so April was a friend of a friend, and I had met her a couple times. Had been to one of her experimental cello performances. It was really neat. And I went on a picnic with a bunch of friends, and she was there. And brought my ukulele because at the time I had decided I would just carry my ukulele everywhere because I'm terrible at practicing. And I figured if I just took it everywhere with me, even if I didn't play during the day, I would feel like, oh, well, I've been holding this for 12 hours. I better at least play a couple of songs on it. So anyway, I ended up playing one of my songs at the picnic, and I think she was very struck by it and really kind of fell in love with the music and, told me she would be interested in doing a project and collaborating with me. And then Adrian was a coworker of mine at the restaurant I was working at, Life Alive. And we had an email list there where I decided we had a very communal kind of staff there who were very supportive of each other. So I sent out an email with like demos of all my music, just very rough demos to kind of get some feedback and see what people thought of it and give me advice. And Adrian reached out and told me he was interested in being part of the project too. So, and then we all just we clicked right away. It was just an easy group of people, no drama, no ego. Just all wanting to make good music and friendships, and so it was really great.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like the timeline moved really fast. Before we started recording, you were telling me that y'all did the crowdfunding for the album last fall.
Yes.
And y'all met sometime in August. So I mean, y'all went from end of summer to immediately, hey, let's do this thing and let's start producing an album.
Yeah, well, it kind of those two things kind of happened simultaneously. I got in touch with the studio, Plaid Dog Recording Studio, whose business model is that they help you run a crowdfunding campaign in order to fund your project. So I started with them and sort of signed the contract right around the same time the band formed. So it sort of started out like I'm going to do this either way, but then the band was forming at the same time. So those things kind of happened in the same time period.
Gotcha. So since you were starting that before the band, what was kind of that catalyst that made you say, hey, I want to take this from just a personal thing, maybe a hobby that I have fun with, to let's do this professionally and make a big push?
Yeah, well, honestly, I think realizing I wanted to do music professionally came before either of those things. It was kind of just from, doing open mics and hearing feedback, and partly from my boyfriend being like, asking me questions like, so what do you want to do with this? And really like thinking about those things, which was very uncomfortable for me at first. The idea of trying to be a professional musician, I couldn't even say it out loud. It felt so strange. It felt so like, unattainable or something. Yeah, so I think, yeah, it was sort of setting that intention of this is something I want to at least try to pursue and put whatever I can into, that got the projects rolling quickly.
Sorry, my mind just blinked. I might cut this part out.
That's fine.
Oh, so
with me all the time.
With the crowdfunding, explain that process. Did y'all give away a lot of like freebies to fans, or I mean, and one thing I want to talk about too after that is that with music, it's kind of like a new economy that's starting to emerge. I mean, it has been for a while with the whole streaming, and I haven't bought a CD in years. Don't shoot me for that.
Yeah, you're one of many.
Yeah. So with the crowdfunding, I mean, that's a different model that's only been around for probably maybe 10 years or less. So kind of explain how that was for you.
Yeah. It was kind of a nightmare. I mean, I'm extremely grateful to everyone who was part of the So basically how the process worked was I made a list of about 200 or more people who were my friends or fans who I thought would be maybe interested in supporting my music. Mm-hmm. And then I did a very active campaign of emailing them very frequently and posting on Facebook every day, posting on Instagram every day, just asking people for support, asking people for money, which I'm super thankful for how it turned out. It was really difficult. I think it felt really annoying at times, to be frank. Especially like just asking people close to me for money or, it's a difficult, I definitely am not at a place where I think a hard thing about choosing the arts as a career is like, and especially music, especially now that people really can stream all the music they want for free. They don't have to pay for it. You really have to, I think, get good at understanding like that I, as an artist, really have to ask my support base for money, and I have to do it frequently, and I have to do it without being ashamed of that and realizing that's how I'm able to do this and able to make a living and do it professionally is by people who enjoy my music, compensating me in some way for it. But I'm definitely not there. It's still like a difficult kind of mentality to get to for me, to be honest.
Gotcha. And did the recording of the album start right after the crowdfunding, or when did that kick off and take place?
Well, initially, when I was crowdfunding, I thought that it would start right after, so I thought we'd be recording in December, but I hadn't realized that the studio was booked through then, and I was leaving for 3 months from January to March, so we ended up not being able to record until May. So there was like a long period of time between when the crowdfunding ended and when we actually recorded the project.
Gotcha. And you say you left for 3 months. Is that when you went to California?
Yeah. Well, I actually had the chance to go visit South America for a while with my partner because he got a professorship in California and he wanted to take kind of an extended vacation before he just worked nonstop for the rest of his life.
I totally feel that. So tell me about South America. I mean, you were there for 3 months, the whole time?
Yeah. Well, 2 months, and then 1 month we spent like in California seeing different family we have here. Yeah. But it was wonderful. It was my first time out of the country, so we went to Panama and Peru and Colombia, and it was amazing. It was extremely relaxing.
Probably amazing food.
Oh yeah, the food is ridiculous.
That sounds
so
intense.
Good. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I'm super thankful that I got to do that. So.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So after those 3 months, you started recording. You said in like March, April.
In May, actually.
May.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a little Northeast tour, at the end of April, and then we recorded in May.
Okay. And what was the tour like? Was that your first time being on the road, or had you done that before?
It was sort of a first time. It was great. It took a lot of planning. I like booked all the shows and lined up all the bands for it and everything. So it took a lot of planning, but we ended up getting like having over 10 different bands playing it in 4 different cities, and
Oh, very cool.
it was really cool. I mean, the shows were pretty small, you know. We don't have anything released, and our fan base is small right now.
Yeah.
But they were really, really fun. It was a great time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so then you started recording in May. Was this your first time recording professionally, or had you been in like a smaller studio before?
It was my first time. We had recorded the single at the beginning of the crowdfunding campaign, so back in September. So I'd been in the studio to record that, but other than that, that was my first time recording in a studio.
Gotcha. And I find recording very stressful. I would say I'm a bass player that has a good feel and good groove, but poor time. So just having everything locked in is not my cup of tea sometimes. What was that experience? Yeah. What was that experience like for y'all? The technical part of it, was it difficult and frustrating, or did y'all find that easy to overcome?
I love being in the studio. I don't know. It's an experience that I really enjoy. I think there were definitely learning curves, and mostly it was just practicing a lot really intensely right before we went in so that we were prepared for it. But it was pretty smooth, to be honest. We had a pretty good recording experience.
Yeah, because I believe y'all did the whole album in what, like 6 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's fast.
Yeah. And Mike Davidson is the engineer at Plaid Dog Recording Studios. He did a great job. He has a good vision, and he does a great job.
Yeah, the mix was on point. Everything just sounds beautiful. I mean, it's a very good album, especially for our first album. Yeah, you're definitely welcome. And going into the studio for the first time, were all the songs fully written? The production that we hear at the end, is that what y'all had going in, or did y'all change things on the fly?
No, everything was totally ready. Okay. I mean, I'd had those songs ready. We'd been playing them since August or September of the last year. So I actually had to narrow down. I had more songs in that we could have done, but our budget ended up only allowing for 6 songs.
Gotcha. Now let's backtrack a little bit. One thing I really found interesting was the name. I like paradoxes and a wild hum. That's interesting. Where's the name come from?
Yeah. So it comes from, it's inspired by a line in a Jack Kerouac novel, his first novel actually, which takes place in the Northeast, which is kind of fun since that's where the band's from. But it goes like, let's see if I can remember it. It's no, I can't remember it. I'm gonna butcher it. But anyway, it's a quote where it says, it refers to. Okay, let me back up. Let me just tell you the story. So
yeah, I hear the story.
I put out a post on Instagram where I was asking our fan base to help us name the band. And I was saying I wanted it to have something to do with trains, because trains are just an important like piece of symbolism for me and my music and my work and my life probably. So April's friend Chelsea sent us this quote by Jack Kerouac and the name Wild Hum, and I instantly thought it was a great fit. We all did, so we just went with it. But I like it because I think it sums up the music well, because sometimes the music is like very soft. It makes me think of the hum, you know, my voice is very pulled back, very like sweet or whatever. And then sometimes it's wild. It's like almost yelling. So I like that it has that dichotomy in it.
Yeah, same here. I was listening to it today, just kind of hanging out in the hammock. It was a beautiful fall morning, so I was like, let me just listen to the album. I want to have like a full immersed experience of it. And I was thinking about like synonyms for a wild hum, and unrestrained whisper came to my mind. And the songs kind of felt like that. They're soft and they're gentle, but there's something just unhinged, undomesticated about them. And it's a very interesting, like you said, dichotomy.
I love that. I'm gonna have to use that if I have your permission.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. I like it.
It was beautiful. I enjoyed the experience. And with that, did those dynamics come intentionally? Like, did y'all purposefully write the songs that way, or was that just the natural chemistry of the band?
That's pretty natural for how I sing. I think usually it's very dynamic. Um, yeah, it's pretty natural.
And I like how stripped down it is. You come from like a Americana soul kind of background, and it's just very minimalist, but not in a way that things are missing, but in a way that things are just where they need to be. When doing a song like Burnout, where it's just you and April the entire time, maybe a little bit of pad, but it sounded like it was just cello and voice.
Yep.
How did you know that having it so stripped down was enough? Did it ever feel like you should add more?
Well, I wrote this song to be an a cappella song actually.
Okay.
Because it's such a raw song, and I like how it has that feel of being very naked and very just like pure expression. And it's not a song that's made, the purpose of it isn't like so you can sit in the coffee shop and relax and chill, or like so you can like bump to it while you're like doing your homework. It has a specific purpose, which is to take the listener on this kind of this ride, this like experience. But April really liked the song, and she told me she was interested in putting cello to it. And so I was like, well, yeah, of course, let's try it. That could be really cool. And so she had my recording, and she put cello to it in our living room and sent me it. And it was late one night in Cambridge, and I was standing outside on my bike. I was waiting for my boyfriend to come out of his work and listen to it, and just like teared up. It was insane to me how well it brought together the song, and just to me it completed it, because it gives it that like dark, haunting sound and resonance, but it still leaves it with that very like raw, stripped down feel. And I think that's really essential to that song. It's not a song for everybody. It's not a song I expect everybody's gonna like, and I don't always get good reviews of it, but I think it plays a specific role for me.
Yeah, you said haunting, and that's the one word that came to my mind, just with the slow, long drones of the cello and like some of the lower register notes that she plays. It just gives it a depth that you might not be able to get just with the voice. Yeah,
absolutely.
And you mentioned trains being important symbolism to you. What do trains happen to mean to you?
A lot of things. I think most concisely, I'm going to say that and then ramble because I haven't put this answer together.
Go for it. I don't want a pre-computed answer. I just want the real thing.
Yeah. Well, I really loved there's a line in Burnout actually that's, the sound of a train always helps me fall asleep. The way that they come then go just always gets the best of me. And that comes from, I used to listen to the train while I was a kid to fall asleep at night. And my dad was in and out of the house growing up. He would be home for a while, and then he would kind of disappear without warning and be gone for a year or so, and then back and then gone. And that was really difficult for me. Created a lot of like sorrow. But I think there was something comforting about the way trains kind of do the same thing. They're gone, but then they always come back. And the symbolism of that, I think, is part of it. Part of it, I think, is the freedom that I think trains symbolize a lot. Like that you can just, they were the first way really to travel, I guess, in this country, is part of why they symbolize that. Like they changed overnight. You would have to spend months crossing the country, or all of a sudden you could hop on a train and go somewhere in just a couple days. So that kind of symbolism of just being able to like go and start your life over whenever you want, just hop on a train. That's part of it too.
Yeah, that's very deep, my friend. I'm speechless after that. That's beautiful, though. I like how you it's a multifaceted like symbolism. It doesn't just mean one thing to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw another theme throughout the lyrics of the album, also in the visuals of what you posted on YouTube, and that was water. Water, I love water. I left my hometown and moved to where I'm at just because of water primarily.
Oh, nice. Are
Water's
you
always
near a lake or?
I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so I'm near the ocean, and we're surrounded by about 4 or 5 rivers. So within 10 to 20 minutes, I'm at water wherever I want to be. Cool. Whether I'm fishing and not catching or kayaking and falling out, I'm somewhere by the water. So.
Has that really happened?
It has.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I was both fishing and kayaking. I was almost done. And I was just like, I'm going to hang out here for just a few more minutes. I'm going to try to get something. I haven't gotten a single bite. And I'm sitting here right at the bank on some rocks. And I'm just rocking back and forth, rocking back and forth. This thing I know, the thing tips over. First time I've been upside down in a kayak. My hands go out innately and kind of cut myself up on the oysters. They're sharp like razors.
Scary.
It wasn't too bad. I was more mad. I'm very clumsy, and before the pain comes or the fear comes, I'll just get so pissed at myself.
I understand that feeling, yeah.
But yeah, I love water, and I saw a theme. The first track on the album is "Divorce on or in the Water."
In the water, yeah. Divorce
in the water, and the first line of "Burnout" speaks of water. Mm-hmm. And then also the visuals on YouTube show water. So how is water important to you?
Yeah. That's keen. That's definitely what I would say is the other symbolism in the album. Well, I think part of it is I think I am a very emotional person. I'm very sentimental and connected to my internal experience, and that feeling like makes me think of water. Of sometimes you get like trapped in the emotions you have and you feel like you have no way out of them. I think that's part of why Divorce in the Water is called Divorce in the Water. It's this feeling of kind of drowning a little bit, like just being stuck under your feelings, like but then on the other hand, that like enveloping feeling of being in water can also be very like very relaxing and satisfying. So I think that's another piece of symbolism that has both sides. It's like it's vast and it can be very painful and overwhelming, but it can also be very beautiful and reassuring.
And what's your favorite song on the album and why?
My favorite song is Tenderly. And I guess it's my favorite for a lot of reasons. I love to sing it. I love that it has that soft, sweet, like sultriness to it. And then it also gets very like powerful and kind of unhinged, unrestrained or whatever. So I always love singing it. It always feels like a different experience every time. When we play with the band, it's always different. We always play it different together, which is also really fun. And I love the theme of it. It's about it's there's a darkness in the song like there is in most of my songs, but it's really it's like a hopeful song. It's about being in a relationship where you can feel that there's like love kind of burgeoning there, but there's the fear of taking that next step with somebody. And it's kind of a song about like riding that line and staying in the space that's uncomfortable for long enough to kind of see what will happen.
Yeah, I love that. And after listening to the album, when I first heard it, Divorce in the Water was definitely my favorite. And I like every song. But I don't know why, I'm always looking for my favorite. If I have 10 cookies,
it's like,
I need to find my favorite cookie. So after listening to the album, I wanted to find my favorite song. And it's probably, I think it's track 5. I might butcher the title. I forgot to write the song titles down.
It's okay.
But Wondering If You Will Be Around Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's Wondering If You'll Be Here Tomorrow. That's very close.
Be here tomorrow. So I was very close. What does that song mean to you? I want to hear what it meant to you, and after that, I kind of break down what it means to me.
Well, I wrote the song out of my anxiety in relationships, of being afraid that my romantic partner is going to leave. But I think the song more deeply comes from my experience with my father growing up, that I never really knew if he was going to be there when I needed him. And it also makes me think of death. Because I think in a more existential way or whatever, that's something we have to face in the reality of all of our relationships and giving of ourselves to people in the world. We have to do it, knowing that it's not an eternal experience.
Yeah, and you have a line towards the end of the song talking about forever doesn't exist. Kind of explain that. Was that about a particular relationship or relationships in general, or was that more the existential part of the song?
To me, that part of the song is existential. I think we talked about I was raised religiously, and a lot of people I grew up around kind of have this view that, there's this place called heaven, and there's going to be this big party, and all the people we know are going to be there, and, everything that's wrong with the world is going to be fine, and blah, blah, blah. And my opinion is that can serve, and I've seen it serve, to keep people from being actually very present in the now, and giving all that they have to their relationships now, and changing the world now, and taking responsibility for their actions now. So I think there's no way to know if that's true. Just very simply, there's absolutely no way to know that that's true. And I don't find it useful to get caught up in that kind of fantasy to avoid the reality. I think it's more useful to kind of face the reality that we're in here and what we do know head on. And to me, that means really cherishing the relationships we have now, and honoring and respecting the people that are in our lives now.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm glad you did feel that existential part of the song, because that's what I felt when I listened to it. Probably just because of my personal history, having my biggest loss of this point being my mother.
I'm so sorry.
It's both sad and happy at the same time. Grief is funny, how it changes over time, and it's been about 9 years, which time doesn't matter, but some days it's extremely happy, other days it's extremely sad. But one thing that I started thinking after she passed was, you know what, I may never see this woman again, and that's okay, because I had her for the moment that I did. And it started making me think about, like you were saying, the now. I listen to a lot of spiritual teachings. A teacher I like to follow, a guy named Ram Dass, and he talks about be here now. Don't live your life in a fantasy of the past, trying to have experiences over again that you'll never have again. Don't fantasize about the future and make it something that it's not, because it's not tangible. You can't touch it. But be here now. The moment of now is eternal. And this is the only experience that's verified. So, I mean, we don't know what comes next. And sometimes that's anxiety inducing for me. I don't know about you.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
But yeah, making that transition mentally, I think it's made me a little bit more present for the people I care about now. Because I'm not taking for granted, I will see you again at a future place. It's no, this is what I have with you. I don't know when you're going to be taken from me, so I want to give all of myself to you in this moment. And I'm not very good at that. When my friends hear this, they'd be like, bullshit, Bobby, stop playing on this podcast.
We're all working on it,
yeah,
man.
So I'm a work in progress. So guys, don't call me out. But it's beautiful that you said that, because it's totally what I felt.
I think that's really beautiful. And I'm really touched right now, honestly. And I think we should... I think we could close out with me playing that song.
Yeah, let's totally do that. I do have a few questions. I've watched other podcasts and they kind of have a theme. So okay. I was listening to Mike Posner the other day, and he said a quote that
I was listening to him yesterday. That's funny.
I love Mike. Have you been following him on Instagram doing his walk across America and all that?
No, I'm not really good at following anybody too closely, to be honest.
Gotcha. I kind of binge. I don't follow him a lot. I'll just catch up every 2 or 3 weeks. But he's walking across America right now.
Cool.
For whatever reasons. Love you, Mike. But in this quote, he said, I realized I had a list of things I wanted to do after I finished doing the things I felt like I was supposed to do. Do you have a list like that? Things you want to do, but you might be putting off that you feel like you should go ahead and do right now?
What a great question. Yeah, there is a thing that I've been wanting to do for a really long time and I haven't done. And that's, I love playing music for, like seniors. Like I would love to go into, old folks' homes and play regularly. And yeah, I guess I've just been putting that off. I think to me that's like, well, playing for kids and old people, I always prefer because I think it's sort of along the lines of what we were just talking about, but they have so much more attention and appreciation than most of the population. And I think a lot of it comes down to what we were talking about of like a more poignant awareness of the now.
Yeah, I like how you said that. I'm going to relay it back to your symbolism of trains. I once heard that children and older people, the elderly, they get along so well and their love is so tender because one just came from the darkness and one's about to go back to it. That's kind of like trains, how they come and they go. Next question. If you had one message for your audience that you could summarize in 1 to 3 sentences, what would that be?
Tell the truth to yourself and your loved ones and do it every day until it starts feeling good.
Nice. And we're about to get really deep here. If you could be anything other than human, what would you be?
Interesting question. I would probably be an eagle so that I could fly.
Awesome. Well, Hannah, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm very honored, pleased, grateful that you came on the podcast. We've spent almost an hour together, so I'm very thankful for your time. Thanks for your support too, your encouragement.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. Unexpectedly so.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I messaged you. For y'all that don't know, I messaged her like 3 days ago. I was just like, you know what? I'm starting this podcast on Sunday. And I was like, hey, Hannah, I was like, I've been following your music. I get what Wild Hum's trying to do. I love it. And would you be the first guest? And she's like, yeah, certainly. So it's been an honor. Thank you. Absolutely. It's an honor for me. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you again, Bobby. Definitely. And you're going to play one song for us. What are you going to play? I'd love to play It's Wondering based on our very meaningful conversation. Oh, thank you.
It's wondering if you'll be here tomorrow. It's got me spinning out of my mind today. Oh, how I wish that I could feel you without worrying that you're going away. Darling, I've been watching you closely. I've been listening to your lips and to your eyes. Darling, I've been watching is wondering if you'll be here tomorrow. It's got me spinning out of my mind today. Oh, how I wish that I could feel you without worrying that you're going away. Forever is a long time to promise. Especially since it don't exist. So why this lonely obsession? Oh darling, I keep trying to seal my soul with your kiss. And it's wondering if you'll be here tomorrow. That's got me spinning out of my mind today. Oh, how I wish that I could feel you without worrying that you're going away. Oh, how I wish that I could feel you in my arms without worrying that you're already going away.
All right, everybody. So we had some technical difficulties, so she wasn't able to play live for us right now. But I hope you enjoy the performance of that song. And Hannah, again, thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. This looks like a start to a great friendship, so I
think so.
appreciate that too. So where can people find you? So you just came out with a new album a few days ago. Where can people find you?
So the best place to go is our website. We really appreciate it if you go to our website, and that's wildhummusic.com. So WILDHUM music.com. And from there you can find all of the other places that you can stream our music and such. But you should be able to stream it from any platform. We have a YouTube channel, and you can stream on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, iHeartRadio, all different things.
And do you all have any physical merch that people can purchase on the website?
Yeah, we are selling physical CDs, and we have some really cool t-shirts that have a train on them.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, you heard that, everybody, from Hannah Rooth of Wild Hum. Support them, follow them on social medias, check out their website, and get your train t-shirt.
Thank you so much, Bobby. This has been really fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Man, so that was awesome. I couldn't have hoped for a better first episode of the podcast. I really appreciate Hannah coming on, hanging out with us, just really sharing from her heart. Definitely go check them out, wildhummusic.com. You can also find them. I will link to their other socials in the description of this video. And if you're a band or an artist and you would love to be on the podcast, find me on Instagram at Off the Beaten Path Podcast. Follow me there, shoot me a DM. Let's have a conversation, and we'll definitely get you on a episode here soon. Until next time, take care.